You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So Mayor Ted, the infamous mayor of Portland, Oregon, he's got a 3-point plan that moving forward, he's going to handle the protesters. Let's see what that is. Let's jump right on in. If you're new, my name is Sean Reynolds. I'm the owner of a couple of real estate companies, but I read the news here on YouTube. Let's get into it. Riot in downtown Portland on New Year's Eve reportedly caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage. Shocking, I know. This hasn't been happening since, May 25th? It's just been happening nonstop, right? On Friday, Mayor Ted Wheeler called for stiffer penalties for those who repeatedly engage in destruction and vandalism, like they have for the last, what are they on? Day 100 and I don't know, is it 200? I'm not sure. It's a lot. I know at one point in time they were celebrating day 150 of peacefully protesting in Portland, but we're way past that now. And now it's just gotten to that point where it's not politically doing Portland or anybody else in any of these cities any positive. It's not giving them positive vibes. So we go the other direction and we're basically going to say, we've got to stop this violence. It's only taken us 7 or 8 months, but now we're going to stop it. A riot in downtown Portland on New Year's Eve reportedly caused tens of thousands of dollars of damage. Authorities say dozens of people vandalized businesses by spray painting them and breaking windows. At least 3 people were arrested. At a press conference on Friday, January 1st, Happy New Year, Mayor Ted Wheeler, he called out those responsible, who he described as violent and antifa and anarchists. It's the first time, I think, that I've heard it just basically been called right out. Before that, it was the protesters, and we just used a lot of words that kind of described them. But now Mayor Ted's coming right out and saying antifa. Lawlessness and anarchy come at great expense and with great risk to the future of our community, said Wheeler. This is the same mayor that was out there not protesting with them, but supporting them earlier when it was more politically correct to do so. We're told some in the group tried to use tools to break into the federal courthouse and Justice Center. Now, they were doing that back in July, and President Trump said, if you need help, we'll send in those federal troops. And everybody was like, oh, no, that's a violation of our rights. Oh, we can't have that. No, don't send in federal troops. Well, now we're talking about, the exact same people are now using tools to break into the federal courthouse and the Justice Center, exactly like they've been doing all summer long and into the fall. Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle said responding law enforcement officers came under attack. This is not uncommon. It was very violent. A very large confrontational group met them with Molotov cocktails, rocks, bricks, and frozen water bottles, said Lavelle. Now, I know you've heard this all before because I've done a podcast on it and we probably already released it. And you're like, Sean, this is a broken record. But Mayor Ted's got a 3-point plan, and that's what we're getting to here very, very soon. So hang in there with me. And you know what? I've got people calling, leaving voicemails, leaving email saying, hey, Sean, you're not really helping things out because you're reporting on news and you are giving power to others that shouldn't necessarily have the power. Let's talk about that for 1 second. I don't think that's the case. And what I do here on YouTube, let's be honest, it is entertainment only. This is not University of YouTube where I talk about the ins and outs of whatever it is that we think might be super popular. I am not an authority on anything. I read the news and you guys watch because you find it entertaining. That's our deal, right? That's our deal. Nothing more than that. So if you think that I'm either trying to help or if I'm trying to destroy, certain segments of what's going on right now, that's fine. At the end of the day, you can either watch, you can subscribe, you can hit the notification bell, or you can go look at somebody else's YouTube channel. I'm okay with that. I'm just here. I'm here to entertain. I have storylines that I think are interesting. A lot of other people think they're interesting too. So let's get back to it. But if you don't like what I'm doing, nobody's making you watch. But if you do want to watch, thanks for being here and thanks for supporting. That is my rant, which isn't really a rant. It's just kind of common sense. And that's kind of a lot of what I do is, does this make sense? No, and if it doesn't, we move on. And right now we are moving on because you guys are still watching. And thank you. So he committed to 3 changes. Mayor Ted committed to 3 changes. Mayor Wheeler wants to crack down on people repeatedly breaking the law, saying it's time to push back harder at those set on destroying our community. So we've gone from literally the summer of love here in Seattle, same thing, mirror image down in Portland, to cracking down and pushing back harder at those set on destroying our community. What a turnaround. All of a sudden, it is no longer favorable to have these protesters out causing the damage they're doing. It's politically not a good thing. So now we're going to hammer down on those people. That's what's going on. So Mayor Ted committed to 3 changes. First, numero uno. The mayor is asking law enforcement to meet with him to address the ongoing violence in Portland and across the state. I don't know if you guys have followed the news stories, but the gun violence in Portland and P-Town, ooh, that is not good. That is off the hook. They're just running around shooting people left and right. Not unlike Chicago. But for Portland's always been kind of this backwater, weird, like Seattle, weird town. And now they are just going ham, shooting each other. Okay, so the first thing is address the ongoing violence in Portland and across the state. Second, numero dos. Second, he's asking the state legislature to come up with stiffer penalties for those who repeatedly engage in vandalism and destruction. Do we need that? Or do we just actually prosecute those people who are breaking the law? I don't know, because I think that's what's so much to do with this is that you can go and protest, you can go get arrested, and you're going to be out that night. They're not going to hold you. They're not going to do anything. You're just going to have a hall pass because all the governors and all the mayors and they're supported. They have supported the protests until now. Election's over, and now it's just a bunch of businesses getting raked over the coals like they have been this entire time. But now politically, it's like, oh, we've got to do something. We've got to make a change. So number 2, asking the state legislature to come up with stiffer penalties for those who repeatedly engage in vandalism and destruction. Okay, should have been doing that all along, but now apparently it's part of the 3-point plan. And lastly, numero 3, right? He wants those convicted of the destruction of vandalism to meet with the employees and owners of the damaged businesses. Do the employees and owners of the damaged businesses want to meet with them at all? Hell no. No, they're just like, stay away from our business. Don't bash our windows out. We're having a hard enough time anyway. We're in downtown Portland. It's kind of a hellhole here anyway, right? I mean, it's a small area, but it has been rocked pretty hard. In those areas where the protesters have done their damage, it's all boarded up. You've got graffiti everywhere. I mean, you've got homeless just everywhere, drugs running rampant. I mean, none of this stuff is new. I don't think number 3 here it's not going to work. I don't think either party wants to meet with the other one. And it's not like this is a tough love issue. You've got one party that just basically wants to get rid of everything, and you've got another party that's trying to struggle through a pandemic to hold their businesses together via whatever thread of normalcy they have left. And that's not going well. You're shut down. You're not shut down. You've been the victim of multiple times probably when you've either had graffiti done, your windows broken in, maybe your shop broken into. These are all normal things. And I keep talking about commercial insurance. Commercial insurance companies, they're only going to take so many claims. And then what do? Yeah, we're pretty much not insuring in those areas. And that's why my podcast, that's why I'm going to keep going. People are like, you should probably stick to real estate. You're not really making a difference. Well, I'm not really trying to make a big difference, but I am trying to give a perspective from a small business and from a small business owner's mindset of what's going on out there. And you've got these massively different viewpoints on reality and living and just society. One wants to destroy everything, and the other is just trying to survive and make a living of it, which is a very difficult thing to do when you keep getting broken into And you got to deal with, all right, we might get broken into again. What can we do to protect ourselves? Because the city basically does not have our back at all. And we have proven that time and time and time and time again. You can talk to a ton of different small business owners in these areas that are heavily impacted by this, and they will all tell you the same story. We call 911. When the police do show up, most of the time they don't show up. When they do show up, they say, we've got our hands full. We're out taking care of more important crime. That's what we're doing. We'll have somebody get back to you. We'll work on it. I mean, they just can't cover all the stuff that's going on right now. That's the bottom line. And then with defunding, it's a whole nother story. You've just got a whole series of events working against small business. And that was part of my whole thing. I started covering this is, nobody's really talking about the business owner. Nobody's really talking about the businesses that are just getting rocked during all these protests. Nobody's saying that. They're not talking because nobody really cares. And there aren't really that many small business owners who have a podcast, who have a platform, who have a voice that can talk about it. Well, I'm one of those guys. And as long as you keep listening and watching, I'm going to keep going. Head down, move on. Those people need to hear and understand the human and social consequences of their irresponsible actions, said Wheeler. Well said, Mayor Ted. Now, if you had only said that 7 months ago, I might give you some credibility. To me, this is a day late, $1 short. You know that term? It just kind of means, well, I hear you saying it, but you should have been doing it long ago, and you didn't, because so many of these businesses have been broken into multiple times. They're not claiming insurance because guess what? You claim for a third time your windows have been broken, you're not going to get another policy. And these policies are not cheap. Anything to do with commercial, which is running a business, which is running in a commercial storefront, whatever it is, it's expensive. It's not like going to Geico and just tee me up a policy, let's roll kind of thing. They're complicated. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say complicated, but they're expensive. And, it's commercial insurance. It's just a little bit different. You got to go down a little bit different road. So when you lose a policy, it's not like, I'll just tee up, whomever else. I'll go to Allstate and just get a policy from them. Doesn't really work quite that way because people take stuff pretty seriously on the commercial end of things when you do a claim. All right. So the mayor says he condemns anyone who engages in violence or criminal destruction, no matter what their ideology. Again, I'm going to say day late, $1 short, but it is interesting that Mayor Ted Wheeler is coming out with this stance. At this point in time in the game, we'll just kind of have to see moving forward what this looked like. All right. So we got Mayor Ted going down that road. Here's your bonus article. What are we? We're 15 minutes in. This is a different article that I thought had some really good points that kind of coincides with that last article, which is Mayor Ted pulling out the three-pronged plan. I mean, he's a man of action. He's going to take care of these violent activists now after basically holding hands with them and singing Kumbaya all summer and fall. This is just what we're doing. This is the Pacific Northwest. This is how we handle things. It might seem a little weird to everybody else, not in these areas that have this kind of going on. But when you come to Seattle or you come to Portland and you look at what's going on, you're like, yeah, this is kind of just a freak show on steroids that's being allowed to have happen. That's what happens. So let's go on to this next one. Portland activists expect protests will continue in 2021. What? They're going to keep going? They're not going to shut down? They're moving forward? Let's see what they've got going. Let's see what they're talking about doing. In 2020, Portland saw protests of all sizes with varying levels of peace. How about varying levels of violence? Because that, to me, is more of what I saw. Granted, I was there for one day and one night, part of another day. It's all I needed to see of Portland. It was a little rough. We're all worried that Black Lives Matter has become like a fad. We know that trends end, and this is not a trend. This is my life. This is from Black Joy founder Julianne Jackson. This is her thing. We're all worried that Black Lives Matter has become like a fad. We know the trends end, and this is not a trend. This is my life. It's what these demonstrators are saying. During one of the final demonstrations of the year, police declared a riot. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler condemned it. So that's where we kind of dovetail with this whole theme is, all right, we got some major criming going on. We got vandalism, graffiti, breaking into stores. Didn't see any looting. Oh, no, wait a minute. Looting happened at the Starbucks store in Portland. Wasn't Starbucks a pretty big Starborg? That sounds like something out of a fictional movie, right? Didn't Starbucks donate pretty big time to Black Lives Matter? I think they did. I'm not sure. So Mayor Ted condemned it. KATU, that's who wrote this article, asked activists if they feel the same way. I think if people are looking for a reason to not support Black Lives Matter, they're going to find it. What kind of statement is that? It's like you can find a reason to do anything you want about anything, right? Yeah, I don't really want to go to the gym today. It's slightly cloudy. I only go to the gym on clear days. And if you said that in Seattle, guess what? You'd never go to the gym. So logic like that to me is like, okay, but all right, let's keep going. I also know that without support from folks that are more extreme than myself, I don't know what people would be listening. I don't know that people would be listening. Okay, but what they're listening to now is a storyline that they're afraid of, which is, if this comes to the suburbs, you're going to break into my house because you're already breaking into businesses. You're already ransacking businesses. You're destroying property. You're destroying private property. People are like, all right, we don't want that in our neighborhood. Let's watch the freak show in downtown, in the downtown urban areas. But man, don't bring that to my hood. That's the storyline I hear people listening to. And a lot of people, I think, are saying, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, originally it started out as an awareness of, what went down with the whole George Floyd thing and what we might do moving forward. But then it so quickly devolved into protests that were not peaceful, and they were basically hijacked by other interests, right? That Mayor Ted calls out. He just calls right out, says, it's Antifa. That's what he's saying. So here's a tweet from Megan Allison. She's from KATU. Local activists tell me they expect protests will continue in 2021. I asked if recent, more violent demonstrations are a distraction from social justice. Some say this is the case, while others disagree. Those with the Coalition to Save Portland tell KATU they're putting pressure on city officials to make sure protests stay peaceful. That's something that I've thought of is minute the police see, because there's usually police on, they're on standby somewhere super close by, right? They know these things are going down. The minute these protests go sideways, Johnny on the spot started arresting people. But then you'd have all these protesters just up in arms over, they used the tear gas. Not the tear gas. It's not make my eye water. I think that peaceful protests are welcome. I think that they're encouraged, but let's focus on peaceful. Once they become riots or declare riots, then we really need to sink our teeth into prosecuting these people, Director Gabriel Johnson said. That's interesting. Sink our teeth into prosecuting these people. That's what I've kind of said all along. If people break the law, prosecute them. Throw them in jail. Let them see how that goes. Let them see if they think about that differently down the road. They probably won't. But at least they'd be off the streets for a little bit, right? And you've got businesses who would probably go, oh, good, we don't need to meet with those people to explain how they're destroying our lives. We know they're in jail. I think they'd rather see that, Mayor Ted, than have a meeting with them and have the kumbaya moment of, we all just need to get along. KATU asked the founder of Black Joy if she sees vandalism and break-ins as a distraction from the Black Lives Matter movement. Good question. I think that they got folks' attention. Whether it's needed in the new year or not, we can't say, but I do know that it keeps the attention on Black lives. But is that the positive attention you want? No, that's super negative attention. And maybe you're going by any PR is good PR. But in this case, In a lot of people's opinion, I think they look at Black Lives Matter and go, we support the initial cause that kind of got it going. A lot of other people will say, yeah, that's socialism. We don't really want much to do with that because the founders of Black Lives Matter, basically socialist, right? So, do we support this movement? We understand, obviously, that there needs to be some reform, but the way that the Black Lives Matter movement basically came out to the public is, well, they are doing some protesting, which invariably end up in violent riots that destroy a lot of businesses and property along the way. That's not something we're down with. So that's why I think you've got this change in political direction on allowing these protests to kind of keep going, because in the way that they have been, because now all of a sudden it's no longer in favor. So we're going to start seeing more people get arrested. Maybe we won't. I don't know. So KATU reached out to the Multnomah County District Attorney. The District Attorney's office said they have prosecuted about 150 criminal cases resulting from demonstrations in the last 6 months. As far as violence over the holiday weekend, they say those crimes are still under investigation. Portland Police also responded. Portland Police Bureau is constantly evaluating our response to violent demonstrations. Most of our response is determined by the crowd dynamics. This violence and destruction is unacceptable. The demonstrations present a challenge for us as we have become leaner in regard to our resources and still need to respond to life safety calls, such as our increase in shootings, Officer Derek Carmen said. So we would like to address, as the police officers, what they're saying is, we would like to cover all crime. We want to make sure that you all stay safe. However, our numbers are thin because we're getting defunded. And guess what? When we are out doing all this other crazy stuff, you only got so many cops on the ground. And when these demonstrations roll through, they got to deal with them. And so other life safety calls, you might get put on hold for a while. And that's if your 911 call, somebody actually responds to it. That's happening in Seattle a lot. It's like, we called 911, nobody came, or they didn't come, or it took a really long time. That's just reality. The police are doing the best they can. When you got this nonsense going on in downtown Portland, it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of police officers involved there that arguably shouldn't be there, because that should have been taken care of a long time ago. The public information officer said Portland Police Bureau shares the community's concern when it comes to balancing free speech and monitoring demonstrations that erupt into violence and vandalism. For so long, all we heard about were the peaceful protests and the police clapping down on these peaceful protesters doing nothing wrong at all. That was the narrative. And now that narrative has flipped. And it's kind of like, all right, can't really believe anything you hear in the media, right? That's the bottom line. You just got to go out there yourself, see what's going on, and then maybe find people that you enjoy watching, maybe like me, maybe not. You can watch somebody else's YouTube channel if you don't like watching me. That's fine. But figure it out in your own mind. What is it that I believe? How much nonsense is there? I got to read between the lines here. That's what I do all day long, is kind of read between the lines of what's going on, what's happening, what I think is going to happen. And a lot of this is just my opinion. I'm just sitting here talking. I'm a real estate guy talking about what I think. And I think it's those combinations of a couple of different factors there. I am the owner of a couple of small businesses. I have 30 plus years background in real estate. If you want to come in and argue with me on real estate, I will have you for lunch. That's the bottom line. I have a lot of people who say, I'd really like to discuss this aspect of real estate with you. I really want to debate you. I really want to get into it with you. Well, I don't really want to do that because there's no challenge for me. So the protesters are going to keep doing their thing. Mayor Ted, he's got a 3-point plan that's bound for success. I mean, that has success written all over it. He's at a point where he's got to say something to his constituents, this people of Portland, because they're all looking at him like, man, you let this go on for way too long. Now what's your excuse? The Mayor Ted's got to do something. He's kind of finally got his back punched up against the wall, and he's probably getting directive from other people. All right, this is no longer in our favor. Election's over. We need to do something. Let's stand tall and let's really show these protesters what's what. That's what's going on. So as this storyline continues, and it will, for sure, I will report it to you right here on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Thanks for being a part. Thanks for listening to me talk about stuff that may or may not make any sense to you. But I enjoy recording these podcasts and just kind of talking about what these storylines on, because I don't see them in a lot of other places either. So I figure even if I get it half wrong, it kind of starts the conversation of, well, this is something that's going on out there. And if you're a small business owner, this is probably impacting your life. I'm going to talk about it. Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you guys in the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.